Everyone doubted the infertile and paralyzed tech CEO, until one night, Triplets arrived against all odds. "Hello, my beautiful family. How are you all doing today, my beloved sweethearts? I bring to you another tale of love today. Now, before we go straight in, I want you to take a second to subscribe to our channel. It's in evidence that you love me and you love my stories. Please do well to hit the subscribe button because it means a lot to me. And also comment where you are watching from so we know how connected we are. Now let's begin with this beautiful story. The city shimmered like a faraway constellation beneath Tristan Caldwell's window, its brilliance a cruel contrast to the hollowness within him. Inside the penthouse, time didn't move. It hovered, stretched thin by silence and sorrow. He sat in the dim glow of a single lamp, hands gripping the armrests of his wheelchair as if anchoring himself to something. Anything real. The doctor's words from months ago echoed endlessly. "You'll likely never father a child." That single sentence had shattered something inside him more completely than the accident that broke his spine. Tristan had conquered tech empires, redefined innovation, and built Novatech from a college dorm dream into a global force. But none of it, none, prepared him for the quiet devastation of being told he would never have a child. Not a son to teach, not a daughter to protect. Just empty rooms and echoing silence. The woman he'd once envisioned that future with had left before he could fully grasp the impact of the news. She vanished like vapor, unable to stomach the long months of physiotherapy, the slowness, the wheelchair. Worse, she sold her silence. Interviews, features, tabloid spreads. The rise and fall of Tristan Caldwell, they branded it. The broken billionaire. The words cut deeper than any surgical scar. He kept his face stoic in public. Smiled through shareholder meetings. Took calls like nothing had changed. But the truth? The truth sat in his bones like lead, pressing down on his soul, whispering that he was no longer a man who had it all, but a man with everything taken away. Then came Elena. A soft chime echoed from the private elevator. Tristan didn't need to look. He already knew who it was. She stepped into the apartment like the quiet grace of dawn. Elena Alvarez, his live-in physiotherapist and aide. She moved gently, as though the room itself could bruise. Dressed in simple leggings and a soft sweater, her long braid trailing over her shoulder, she looked like peace personified. She always did, and it unnerved him. "I saw your light," she said quietly, folding a blanket in her arms. "Thought you might need this." Without asking, she crossed the room and laid the blanket over his legs. His jaw tensed. He'd never once mentioned how cold they got at night, but she noticed. "Thank you," he said, voice barely audible. Elena crouched to meet his eyes, her face filled with that disarming warmth that made it hard to look at her for too long. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He gave a small shrug. "Work on my mind." They both knew it was a lie. Her hand hovered, hesitating between professional boundary and human instinct, then gently settled on his forearm. Her touch was feather light, but it might as well have been lightning through his veins. "You don't have to do this alone," she murmured. And that was the problem. He wanted to believe her. But Tristan had built entire fortresses around his pain. Letting her in would mean risking being seen, fully seen, and what if she saw only what others did? A shell, a headline. He swallowed hard. "I'm all right. You should get some rest." She hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Then she nodded. "I'm here if you need anything," she whispered. Her hand gave a soft squeeze. Then she stood, turned, and disappeared into the elevator. As the door shut, the faint trace of vanilla and clean linen, her, lingered in the air. He closed his eyes and let it settle over him like memory. He shouldn't think of her this way. It was dangerous. But late at night, in the hours no one else saw, he sometimes imagined what it would feel like to hold her. To bury his face in her neck, and let her kindness melt the ache in his chest. Tristan turned back to the window. Outside, millions lived their lives, lovers kissed in dim cafes. Parents tucked in children. Laughter floated from balconies. And he was alone in a cage made of steel, grief, and silent pride. As dawn crept across the city skyline, a new day beckoned. But for Tristan, it felt like nothing had changed. A week passed. Golden afternoon light filtered into the penthouse, painting warm stripes across the hardwood floors. Elena guided him through his daily stretches, correcting his posture with a firm, practiced hand. Her voice was gentle but focused. She never treated him like he was fragile, just human. Today, he was off. "You're quieter than usual," Elena said, rolling up the yoga mat. "Everything all right?" "Just tired," he muttered, already maneuvering his chair toward the desk. But even the simplest movement became a battlefield. One of the wheels snagged on the edge of the mat. The sudden jolt sent him sprawling forward. He hit the floor hard, pain lancing through his arm and shoulder. Elena cried out and rushed to his side. "Tristan, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," he snapped, though pain throbbed beneath his skin. He tried to push himself up, but his legs twisted beneath him, useless like dead weight. "Damn it," he roared, slamming a fist into the floor. The crack of skin against wood was deafening. Elena flinched, but only for a second. Then she knelt beside him, laying a hand gently on his back. "Please," she whispered, "let me help." He wanted to resist. Pride reared its head, screaming to shove her away, but his body was tired, his heart even more so. He gave a small nod. She didn't flinch at his dead weight, didn't falter at the awkward angles or heavy limbs. With surprising strength and grace, she helped him sit up, back braced against the couch. Her breath mingled with his, warm and steady. "I'm sorry," he murmured, eyes fixed on the floor. "I shouldn't have yelled." She reached out and brushed the damp hair off his forehead. "There's nothing to apologize for," she said softly. "I've got you." He couldn't stop the tear that slipped down his cheek, and when she caught it with her thumb, something inside him cracked. Silent sobs racked his body. Years of restraint, of pride, of pretending. It all came rushing out. He pressed his face into her shoulder, and she held him like something precious, stroking his back, whispering nothing but steady reassurance. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. For the first time in his adult life, Tristan Caldwell didn't feel like he had to be strong. He felt safe. When his crying finally ebbed, he pulled back, ashamed. "Elena." It was real, and it changed everything. The moment their lips met, the world narrowed. It wasn't rushed or reckless, just slow, deliberate, and impossibly tender. Tristan didn't move at first, too stunned by the softness pressing against his mouth, too unsure it was real. But Elena didn't retreat. Her hand gently cupped his jaw, anchoring him to the moment, and the warmth of her breath mingled with his. Then, slowly, Tristan kissed her back. What started as cautious turned hungry. Hesitation melted beneath months, no years, of suppressed longing. Their lips molded together, and Elena sighed into him, her fingers slipping into his dark hair. That sigh stirred something inside Tristan, something fierce and raw. He lifted a hand, brushing it along her waist, feeling her tremble. She tasted of salt and something sweeter, hope, maybe. It was intoxicating. A soft moan escaped her throat when his tongue met hers, and he swallowed it like a lifeline. She shifted closer, her body pressing against his chest, warm and real and impossibly close. His body responded instantly. The nerve pathways below his waist might have been unreliable, but his desire, real and pulsing, was undeniable. Every inch of him ached to be closer, to know her in every way. But he pulled back. "Elena," he rasped, breathless, "you don't have to." "I want to," she whispered, her eyes glowing. "Not because I feel sorry for you, because I love you." Her words hit him like sunlight breaking through clouds. Tristan swallowed hard, searching her face. There was no doubt in her expression, no fear or pity, only certainty. A shaky laugh escaped him, half disbelief, half wonder. "I don't know if I remember how to be with someone." He nodded, throat tight. They didn't rush. They let the moment bloom. Elena shifted to her knees and began unbuttoning his shirt, fingers slow and reverent. With each button undone, she pressed a kiss to his skin, his chest, his collarbone, his shoulder, until the fabric fell away and he sat bare before her, vulnerable but unafraid. Tristan's hands trembled as he reached for her sweater, lifting it over her head. Her dark braid tumbled down her back as the soft fabric joined his shirt on the floor. She wasn't wearing a bra. His breath caught. She was beautiful, full curves, glowing skin, and eyes that held galaxies. He hesitated, unsure if he could touch her the way he wanted to, but Elena took his hand and guided it to her breast, resting it there with a contented hum. His thumb grazed the taut peak, drawing a gasp from her lips. "Elena," he murmured, the syllables reverent. She leaned down and kissed him again, this time with fire. They moved slowly to the floor, the plush rug beneath them a cradle for what was about to unfold. Tristan lay back as Elena straddled his hips, her hands braced on his shoulders. She rolled her hips experimentally and moaned when she felt his growing arousal press against her. He bit his lip, heart racing. "I can feel you," he said, wonder thick in his voice. Her smile was radiant. "Good." She leaned down and kissed his neck, trailing her mouth down his chest. Tristan's muscles clenched, every inch of him alive with sensation. When her lips found his nipple, he gasped and fisted the rug. Elena. She hummed, her tongue circling the sensitive peak. I don't know how long I can last, he admitted, voice shaky. She met his eyes and smiled. Then let's not wait. They fumbled out of the last of their clothes, socks, pants, underwear, laughing quietly when one of her leggings caught at the ankle. When they were both bare, Elena knelt above him, her thighs framing his waist. Tristan stared up at her, drinking her in. You're breathtaking, he whispered. Elena flushed, but her eyes were steady. Taking his hand, she guided it between her legs. He found her slick with need, her body hot and ready. He slipped a finger inside, marveling at the tight, pulsing heat. Her head tipped back, lips parted in a breathless moan. Oh! The sound undid him. Carefully, she reached down and positioned him at her entrance. They paused, foreheads touching, breaths shared. Tristan's eyes widened. The sensation was overwhelming, wet, warm, and impossibly tight. He groaned, the sound raw and visceral. Elena whimpered as she took him deeper, inch by inch, her nails digging into his shoulders. When their hips met, she stilled. They breathed together, adjusting to the sudden, glorious fullness. He was inside her, completely. She rocked gently, and Tristan's head fell back with a moan. God! Elena moved with slow, aching rhythm, lifting and lowering herself over him. Tristan gripped her hips, helping guide the motion, stunned by how natural it felt, how right. Every motion sent pleasure blooming through his body. But it wasn't just the physical, it was the way she looked at him, the way she whispered his name, the way her body seemed to know exactly what he needed. He cupped her breasts, thumbs brushing over the hard peaks, and she cried out, riding him faster. Don't hold back, she whispered, breathless. I want to feel all of you. That was all it took. Tristan surged upward, meeting her rhythm, driving deeper. Elena trembled above him, hands grasping his face as she moaned his name again and again. Her thighs quivered, her breath hitched. I'm close, she gasped. He reached between them and circled her clit with his fingers. Her entire body stiffened, then convulsed in a blinding climax. She cried out, her body clenching around him, the sensation sending him spiraling after her. Tristan groaned, pulling her down as he spilled into her, hips jerking with each pulse of release. They clung to each other through it, mouths searching, breath tangled. When the tremors passed, they collapsed into a heap of limbs and kisses and wonder. Elena curled against his chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his skin. He held her close, heart still racing, and kissed the top of her head. I didn't think I'd ever feel this again, he whispered. You're not alone, she replied softly. Not anymore. Tristan's arms tightened around her. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. In that moment, wrapped in her warmth, he knew. Something inside him had shifted. The cold silence of his nights had been replaced by fire. Not just passion, but love. Real, burning, consuming love. The kind that didn't come often. The kind that stayed. It began with a tiny stick and 2 pink lines. Elena stood frozen in the soft light of the kitchen, holding the pregnancy test in trembling hands. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out every sound in the apartment. She stared at the result again, unchanged, definite, pregnant. Her knees nearly gave way beneath her. One hand instinctively moved to her belly, which hadn't changed yet, not visibly. But something was happening inside her. Life, new, fragile life. Her mouth went dry. She tried to steady her breathing, but joy and panic swirled together in a dizzying cocktail. This wasn't just unexpected, it was unthinkable. Tristan had been told it was impossible. She had heard it from him directly, back when trust was still tentative and pain still raw. There's no chance. The accident changed everything. It didn't feel like a mistake. It didn't feel like a problem. It felt like a miracle wrapped in uncertainty. Elena placed the test down gently and reached into her sweater pocket, retrieving a folded printout. The black and white ultrasound she had received yesterday. Her eyes scanned the faint shadows and curves. Not 1, not 2, 3. Triplets. The doctor had looked at her like she'd grown wings. You're only 8 weeks, but there are 3 sacs, 3 heartbeats. Even now, Elena could hardly believe it. She glanced at the clock on the wall. Tristan would be off his conference call soon. She had to tell him. But how? She padded barefoot toward his office, the scan clutched in her fist, heart hammering harder with each step. She found him facing the window, sunlight haloing his dark hair, one hand gently massaging the shoulder that still ached from his earlier fall. He looked peaceful, calm. She hated that she was about to shatter that. He turned at the sound of her steps, a smile blooming across his face, until he saw her expression. "Elena?" he asked gently. "What's wrong?" She opened her mouth, closed it again. Then she stepped forward and took his hands, guiding them to rest low on her abdomen. I have something to tell you," she whispered. He frowned. "You're scaring me." She bit her lip, then looked him straight in the eye. "I'm pregnant." The words landed like a thunderclap. Then something flickered in his gaze. Wonder, maybe. His mouth opened like he might speak, but nothing came, just breath. "We're having a baby," he whispered. Elena hesitated, then unfolded the sonogram and placed it in his hands. His eyes scanned it, confused. "What am I looking at?" She knelt down in front of him, covering his hand with hers. "That's them," she said softly. "3 of them." He looked again. "Triplets." His head jerked up, disbelief etched in every line of his face. "3?" he choked. "Yes," she whispered. "3. I'm 8 weeks along." There was a stunned silence. Tristan sat like a statue, clutching the ultrasound like it might disappear. Elena watched the storm rise behind his eyes. Hope, confusion, joy, and something else. Fear. Then, a question he hadn't wanted to ask slipped from his lips. "But, how can I be sure?" Elena blinked. The question struck like a slap. Her heart twisted. "You're asking if they're yours," she said quietly. "No," he gasped. "God, no. That's not what I mean. Elena, they told me I couldn't. I believed it. I've lived with it. And now this, it feels impossible." Her jaw tightened. "So instead of trusting me, you trust the doctor who gave you a prediction, not a certainty." "It's not about trusting you," he insisted, visibly unraveling. "It's about me. I've made peace with being incapable. I don't know how to wrap my head around this." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You think I'm lying?" "No," he whispered, stricken. "I think I'm scared." She stepped back, pain crackling in her chest. "I can't believe you'd even question this," she said, voice shaking. "You know me. You know me." "I do," he cried. "I know you'd never lie. But my brain, it keeps screaming that this isn't real." Her arms wrapped around her midsection protectively. "I need some air," she whispered, voice breaking. But she was already turning, grabbing her coat. She slipped out the door before he could stop her. The apartment fell into a crushing stillness. Tristan sat frozen, the ultrasound photo clutched in his hand. The miracle he had never allowed himself to imagine was here. The shame was unbearable. A sob tore loose from his throat. "What have I done?" he whispered. He fumbled for his phone and called the fertility specialist who had delivered the verdict years ago. To his surprise, the doctor answered. "Tristan?" came the familiar voice. "It's been a while." He explained everything, voice shaking. The pregnancy, the triplets, the timing. There was a pause. Then, gently, "Tristan, I told you your chances were low, not zero. Healing can change a lot. Hormones fluctuate. I've seen stranger things." "So it's possible?" He croaked. "It's more than possible. Triplets are rare, but they're yours." Tristan's breath caught. He closed his eyes, and he had let his fear drive her away. He grabbed his coat and headed for the elevator, refusing to waste another second. He found her in the park across the street, curled on a bench beneath a willow tree, shoulders trembling. "Elena," he called softly. She looked up, startled, and then stunned. He was crawling across the grass toward her, having left his wheelchair at the edge of the path. His coat dragged behind him, knees scraping the cold ground. She jumped up. "What are you doing?" "Let me say this," he said, breathless. "Please." She hesitated. "I was wrong," he rasped. "I was scared and selfish and stupid. I didn't doubt you, Elena. I doubted the miracle. I couldn't believe something so beautiful could happen to me. But I believe now. I swear I do." She blinked rapidly, tears brimming. "I love you," he said hoarsely. "I love our babies. And if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." Her chest rose with a shaky breath. Then she sank to her knees in front of him. "I needed to hear that," she whispered. "I'll never make you doubt it again," he vowed, taking her hands. "I'm all in. Forever." When they broke apart, both of them were crying. It was from joy. Tristan couldn't stop holding her. Even after Elena had forgiven him, even after the tears and the whispered promises, He still had his arms wrapped around her like he might lose her if he let go. They sat beneath the willow tree, the city buzzing somewhere beyond the leaves, but here, everything was still. She rested against his chest and he cradled her there, his coat tucked around her shoulders. They didn't speak much, not because there was nothing to say, but because what they felt didn't need words. Regret had melted into relief, fear into faith. At last, Elena stirred and looked up at him. "Let's go home," she said softly. He nodded. She helped him back into his wheelchair, one hand always on his arm. Her touch grounded him. Back at the penthouse, the door hadn't even clicked shut before Tristan pulled her into his lap. Their mouths met instantly, hungry, desperate, tender. "I'm sorry," he whispered between kisses, "for doubting you, for doubting them." "I know," she said, fingers curling into his hair. "I just needed you to believe." "I do. Completely." His voice cracked. "I love you, and I love them. I'm ready now." She pulled back slightly, tears in her eyes, but her smile was steady. "Then show me." He wheeled them straight into the bedroom. They undressed with trembling urgency. Elena peeled away his coat and shirt, pressing soft kisses to every new inch of skin. He tugged her sweater over her head, revealing her flushed skin and dark eyes filled with longing. Their hands explored with reverence. It wasn't just passion. It was an apology, a thank you, a vow. As they tumbled onto the bed, Elena rolled atop him, straddling his hips. Her hair spilled over her shoulders as she leaned down to kiss him, long and slow. Tristan's hands roamed up her sides, cupping her breasts. She gasped softly as his thumbs brushed her nipples, then arched into his touch. "I missed you," he murmured against her skin. "Even when you were right there." She smiled, breathless. "I know, but you're here now." They moved together like a prayer. Tristan kissed along her jaw, down to her collarbone. Elena whimpered as his mouth found the swell of her breast, suckling gently. Her fingers tightened in his hair. He traced her curves, marveling at the subtle changes already blooming in her body. When his hand came to rest low over her belly, he paused. "They're in there," he whispered, wonder thick in his voice. Elena covered his hand with hers. "Yes, all three." His eyes shimmered. He lifted her face to his and kissed her, tenderly, slowly, full of reverence. She guided him into her again with practiced ease, her body welcoming him like he belonged there. They gasped in unison, foreheads pressed close. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Always," he replied. Their rhythm was unhurried, a slow dance in soft light. Tristan brushed strands of hair from her face as she rode him, their eyes locked. There was nothing frantic now, only presence, only truth. "I love you," she whispered between gasps. "I love you more than I ever thought I could," he said, voice raw. Her release came quietly, a shiver, a sigh, a quaking breath as her body clenched around his. He followed moments later, eyes squeezed shut, spilling himself inside her with a soft, guttural moan. They clung to each other, chests heaving, breath mingled. After a long silence, Tristan spoke. "I'll never take this for granted again," he whispered. "Any of it." Elena kissed his temple, her eyes wet again. "Neither will I." They stayed tangled together, limbs intertwined and hearts laid bare. There was no room for doubt now, only faith, only love. Later, they lay side by side under the sheets, her head tucked beneath his chin, one hand resting protectively over her belly. His fingers traced idle circles over her spine. Tristan stared at the ceiling, still overwhelmed by it all. The journey, the pain, the redemption, and now this. A new future unfolding in quiet breaths beside him. "I was so scared I'd lost you," he said. "You didn't," she murmured. "You found me again." He turned to face her fully. "Will you marry me?" Elena blinked. "Then stay with me," he whispered. "Forever." "I already have," she replied, wrapping herself around him again. That night they didn't sleep much. They whispered dreams into each other's skin, names for the babies, hopes for their new life, fears too, but they spoke them together, and when dawn crept across the sky once more, they were still wrapped around each other, warm, connected, whole. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as one, as a family. Hello, my beautiful and wonderful family. If this story touches your heart, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and share. We bring you beautiful stories and tales every day, the one that fits your soul and moves your heart. Now let's continue with our beautiful story. The hospital room was filled with light. Morning had arrived softly, the sunlight spilling through the tall windows in quiet streams. Tristan sat beside the bed, one hand cradling Elena's, the other supporting the smallest bundle he had ever held in his life. His son, barely 4 pounds, swaddled in blue, sleeping like he'd already conquered the world. On the hospital bed, Elena lay against a stack of pillows, 2 tiny girls nestled at her breasts, nursing side by side. Their soft sucking sounds, their miniature hands, the way their lashes fluttered, Tristan could hardly breathe for the wonder of it all. He looked down at the baby boy in his arms. The baby's fingers had curled around the fabric of Tristan's shirt. His tiny chest rose and fell in rhythm with his father's heartbeat. The past 2 days had been a blur. Elena's early labor, the emergency C-section, the tension in every doctor's voice, the white sheets, the monitor beeping, the smell of antiseptic. But now there was peace. Now there were 3 tiny reasons to believe in miracles. "How are you feeling?" he asked Elena softly. "Sore," she replied, her voice raspy but light. "And grateful." Tristan smiled, unable to stop himself from leaning in, brushing a kiss across her forehead. "You're incredible." "I look like I survived a war," she teased gently. "You won one," he murmured. Elena laughed, though it was weary. "Help me switch them?" she asked, nodding at the 2 girls. "This one's drifting off." With practiced care, Tristan handed their son into the arms of the nurse waiting nearby, then moved to help reposition the girls, supporting their fragile bodies as one latched onto the other side. "Perfect," Elena sighed as the second twin began to nurse. She looked at Tristan then, her gaze so full it nearly knocked the air from his lungs. "We did this?" He nodded. "Yeah, we did." Another nurse re-entered, checking monitors and vitals. She glanced over and smiled kindly. "They're all doing beautifully," she said. "You're a lucky pair." When the room quieted again, Tristan sat beside the bassinet where his son had been returned. The boy stirred, face scrunching slightly before settling again. Tristan watched him for a long moment, then reached out and gently touched his cheek with one knuckle. "You're real," he whispered. "You're really mine." Elena smiled as she watched him. "I keep expecting to wake up." "You won't," he replied. "This is our life now." He reached over to the nightstand where his phone vibrated. A message had arrived, from his head of PR. He opened it absently, only to find a news headline waiting for him. "Tristan Caldwell welcomes triplets with mystery woman, from infamy to family." The tech world's former broken billionaire turns the page with a surprise birth announcement. He chuckled and showed Elena. She read it and laughed, shaking her head. "They really have a way with titles. Let them write whatever they want," Tristan said. "I've got everything I need right here." The girls finished feeding. A nurse came in to burp and swaddle them, placing them gently in the bassinet with their brother. All 3 lay nestled together, barely distinguishable by their pastel-colored tags, blue, pink, and pink. Tristan sat back on the edge of Elena's bed, drawing her into his arms. She exhaled against his shoulder, eyes fluttering closed. "You should sleep," he whispered. "Only if you'll stay right here. I'm not going anywhere." And he meant it. They rested together for a while. When a knock came at the door, a staff member from the neonatal unit peeked in. "Would you like to choose names now? We can finalize their ID bands." Tristan and Elena exchanged a glance. "I've had 3 names in my head for weeks," she said, smiling. "Jude," she repeated, her eyes soft. "I love that. For the girls, Ava and Camilla." Elena gasped. "That's exactly what I had." Tristan blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope," she said. "Ava, Camilla, and Jude." He kissed her, laughing into her smile. They gave the names to the staff member, who nodded and made notes before leaving them alone again. Tristan stood and walked over to the bassinet. He gently traced each name tag. Ava, Camilla, Jude, his future. Elena watched him from the bed, her heart full. He had changed, no longer the man caged by what he'd lost, no longer afraid to hope. She called to him softly. He turned, and she reached out a hand. He crossed the room, took it, and sank onto the bed beside her again. "What is it? I was just thinking. Maybe now would be a good time to start writing the next chapter." The moment stretched out in silence, warm and full. Outside the hospital window, the spring sun climbed higher. The city bustled on, unaware of what had just changed in this small, quiet room. But for Tristan and Elena, the world had shifted. Not long ago, he had stared out windows praying for something more, wondering if he'd ever feel whole again. Now, with Elena's hand in his, and 3 new lives sleeping peacefully nearby, he finally understood. He wasn't broken. He had simply been waiting for this. Love had not just saved him, it had completed him, and as he closed his eyes beside the woman he would soon call wife, Tristan Caldwell knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning.